Late 1965, the Detroit Arsenal tank plant in Warren, Michigan. Rain lashes the loading yard as a rugged, unpretentious six-wheeled truck grinds off the final assembly line and onto the wet concrete test track. It's painted in standard olive drab, the shade that would soon blend into Vietnam's endless greens and browns. 6 heavy-duty tires, a blunt squared-off hood, and a cab that resembles a welded steel toolbox more than anything sleek or sophisticated. No turret, no factory-mounted gun, no meaningful armor, just pure utilitarian design. Empty, it weighs about 13,000 pounds. Under the hood sits a Continental LDS 427 multi-fuel. Inline 6-engine delivering 134 horsepower, later turbocharged LDT 465 variants pushed closer to 150 to 165 horsepower in many field units. Top speed on pavement? Maybe 55 miles per hour if you're lucky and the road is flat. It looked utterly ordinary. Not a glamorous tank destroyer, not an armored fighting vehicle, not even one of those antenna-festooned command posts. It looked like an oversized cargo truck with a canvas tarp thrown over the bed. An afterthought, pieced together from proven components because someone needed something that simply wouldn't quit. The first drivers, mechanics, and artillerymen who climbed aboard saw exactly that. A machine built for endless grunt work, zero flash, zero promise of fame. It accelerated like it was dragging an anchor, drank fuel voraciously, and rattled your fillings loose on anything rougher than a parade ground. And yet, across the next decade of America's most grueling war, tens of thousands just like it would tow virtually every M114 155mm howitzer and M101 105mm howitzer through every significant U.S. and Allied operation in South Vietnam. From the waterlogged rice paddies and mangrove swamps of the Mekong Delta, to the misty triple canopy jungles of the Central Highlands, to the red dirt hilltop firebases strung along the DMZ like beads on a rosary. They hauled the tubes that smashed Viet Cong base camps during Operation Cedar Falls and Junction City, the guns that delivered devastating counter-battery fire throughout the 1968 Tet Offensive, the batteries that sustained the Marines through the 77-day nightmare siege at Khe Sanh, and the howitzers that supported the final bloody pushes of Lam Son 719 and the Easter Offensive in 1972. They served from the first major troop arrivals in 1965 until the last American combat units withdrew, equipping U.S. Army Field Artillery battalions, Marine artillery regiments, and even some ARVN units that inherited them. They earned a reputation for sheer unbreakable reliability, so absolute that Redlegs, the artillerymen who lived and died by them, trusted these trucks with their lives, night after night, without hesitation. Its official military designation was the M35 series 2.5-ton 6x6 cargo truck, most Vietnam-era examples being M35A1 or M35A2 variants. But to every gun bunny who ever rode shotgun, stood in the open bed, or cursed it while winching it out of yet another monsoon mudhole, it was simply the Deuce-and-a-Half. And it became the quiet, indispensable backbone of American field artillery throughout the Vietnam War. To grasp why the Deuce-and-a-Half mattered so profoundly, step back to the strategic realities of the early 1960s. The North Vietnamese Army, NVA, and Viet Cong moved their 82mm mortars, 120mm mortars, 130mm field guns, and even disassembled 122mm D-74 howitzers, almost entirely by human power. Bicycles, coolie poles, porters slipping along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, or hidden caches. Slow, stealthy, low signature. American and Allied forces, by contrast, built their entire doctrine around overwhelming firepower delivered rapidly and sustained relentlessly. That required total mechanization of artillery. Every battery demanded a prime mover capable of carrying the complete gun detachment, usually 6 to 8 men. Their individual weapons, tools, aiming stakes, camouflage netting, personal gear, rations for days, and several tons of ammunition while simultaneously towing the howitzer itself, complete with trails, spades, and limber, over flooded highways, rutted jungle tracks, bomb-cratered roads, and ambush-infested fire support bases. Older three-quarter-ton trucks, M37 series, were far too light for the M114, 155 millimeters, 12,700-pound combat weight when trailered. The larger 5-ton M54 was excellent for heavy logistics, but frequently left the gun crew riding separately, breaking the tight tactical cohesion the Army prized. What commanders wanted was one rugged, all-in-one vehicle that kept the entire crew with their gun, ready to unlimber, level, and fire within minutes of arrival at a new position. Specifications were issued. REO, Studebaker, and Autocar built competing prototypes, but the M35 family, tracing its lineage back through World War II, 2.5-tonners, won on sheer production scalability, parts commonality, and battlefield-proven toughness. REO led initial contracts. By the late 1960s, AM General was building most. The truck was engineered for simplicity above all else. No exotic materials, no complex electronics, just brutal overbuilt reliability. At its core was the Continental multi-fuel engine, initially the LDS 427, naturally aspirated, 134 horsepower. Later the turbocharged LDT 465, up to 165 horsepower in some rebuilt units. The magic was multi-fuel capability. It happily burned diesel, regular gasoline, aviation jet fuel, or any contaminated mix that made it through ambushed convoys. Power reached all 6 wheels via a non-synchronized 5-speed transmission, a 2-speed transfer case, and selectable 6x6 drive. A massive front-mounted Garwood winch, 10,000-pound capacity, later 15,000 in some kits, was standard, essential for self-recovery in terrain that swallowed vehicles whole. The cab was squared off and functional, driver and commander up front, open troop/cargo bed behind, with fold-down bench seats under a removable canvas cover. Side racks held jerry cans, ammo boxes, camouflage poles. No factory armor beyond thin cab plating against small arms fire. Crews added sandbags, steel plates scavenged from wrecked APCs, and anything else that might stop an AK round or RPG frag. Fully combat-loaded, crew, gear, ammo, plus towing an M114 155mm howitzer and its limber. The entire train routinely exceeded 20 to 22 tons. Dragging that mass uphill in pouring rain at 10 to 15 miles per hour was soul-crushing work. Normal towing speed on decent roads hovered around 25 to 30 miles per hour. Off-road or in deep mud, it often dropped to walking pace. Operational range was roughly 300 to 450 miles on twin 50-gallon tanks, depending on load and terrain. But speed was never the point. Reliability and presence were. The M35 family evolved constantly in Vietnam. Early M35 gasoline engine models gave way to multi-fuel, A1s and A2s. Field modifications were endless. Extra fuel cans lashed everywhere, M60 or M2. HB.50 caliber pintle mounts in the bed, improvised armor skirts from perforated steel planking, camouflage netting attachment points, even quad .50 setups, dismounted M55 Maxim turrets, turning some Deuces into feared convoy escorts when they weren't towing howitzers. Late war trucks often carried jury-rigged searchlights, grenade launchers, and extra radios for fire direction coordination under fire. If these raw, ground-level stories of the machines and men that carried America through its hardest war resonate with you, hit subscribe. It costs nothing, takes one click, and helps keep these deep, no BS military histories coming. The Deuce-and-a-Half entered Vietnam in force during the 1965 escalation. The 1st Cavalry Division, Airmobile, towed M101 105mm and early M114 155mm howitzers into the Ia Drang campaign, the first head-on clash with NVA regulars. At LZ X-Ray and LZ Albany, Deuces slogged through elephant grass, red laterite clay, and creek beds that bogged lighter vehicles instantly, repositioning batteries overnight to support helicopter assaults. During Operation Cedar Falls, January to February 1967, and Junction City, February to May 1967, hundreds of Deuces crisscrossed the Iron Triangle, hauling guns to pound Viet Cong tunnel systems while dodging snipers and command-detonated mines along Route 13. The multi-fuel engine shrugged off bad fuel. The winch pulled howitzers free of flooded paddies mid-contact. A crack gun crew could dismount, unhook trails, drop spades, level with hand spikes, ram home a round, and fire the first 155mm HTE in under 5 minutes. Sustained rates of 4 rounds per minute, occasionally spiking higher in all-out barrages. NVA and VC quickly learned, when the Rolling Thunder started, American firepower had arrived in strength. Khe Sanh, January to July 1968, became the ultimate stress test. More than 100 artillery pieces, Marine 113th, 312th, Army 139th, and others, ringed the combat base. Every howitzer was towed, positioned, and resupplied by Deuce-and-a-Halfs, running the gauntlet of ambushed Route 9 convoys under constant 122mm rocket and 130mm artillery fire. Trucks hauled tens of thousands of tons of 105mm and 155mm shells up steep, muddy hills, while crews lived under poncho liners in the open beds. During the Tet Offensive, January to February 1968, Deuces raced ammo to encircled Hue, Saigon, and Quang Tri, evacuating wounded, suppressing attackers with bed-mounted .50 calibers, and keeping firebases alive. In the Mekong Delta, 11th Marines and 2 11th Artillery batteries dragged 155mm long toms across flooded causeways and through mangrove during the 1972 Easter Offensive, the trucks' 6-wheel drive and winches making the difference between firing positions and bogged abandonment. Versatility defined the truck. One morning it might tow a howitzer battery to a new fire base. By afternoon, it could be hauling hot chow, running medevac, ferrying replacement crews, or serving as a rolling ammo resupply point under indirect fire. Airmobile and airborne units occasionally broke down lighter loads for helicopter sling, but the Deuce remained the ground truth, the reliable beast that never refused to move. Compared to the enemy's Porter-dependent or Soviet Zil-towed artillery, the American system was unmatched in speed and integration. The Deuce kept the gun detachment as one cohesive tactical unit. No separation between crew and piece. A typical battery operated 6 to 10 Deuces per firing platoon, some dedicated tow vehicles, others paired with M105 trailers for continuous ammo flow. Divisions could concentrate 18 to 36 howitzers rapidly, delivering fire missions that routinely broke NVA attacks and VC Sapper assaults. The Deuce-and-a-Half outlived Vietnam by decades. Thousands of surplus M35s went to ARVN before 1975, then spread to dozens of allied nations in the 1970s to 1990s. U.S. Reserve and National Guard units operated them into the early 2000s until the FMTV family fully replaced them. More than 150,000 M35 series trucks were built across all variants. Hundreds survive today in museums, private collections, and military vehicle rallies. The National Museum of the United States Army, the Marine Corps Museum, and various state armories display restored examples, often complete with limber and howitzer, paraded at Vietnam veteran reunions with canvas flapping exactly as it did in 1968. Late 1965, Warren, Michigan. A plain olive-drab 6x6 rolls off the line. 134 horsepower, no glamour, no armor worth mentioning. Factories back home grappled with wartime shortages, labor strikes, and anti-war protests. Workers kept the line moving anyway. The truck was chronically underpowered for the monsoon loads it faced, deafeningly noisy, punishingly rough riding, and spectacularly unremarkable. Yet it worked. It worked in the Delta's knee-deep mud, where tires spun helplessly without chains. It worked on highland single-track trails, where rain turned the world to red slurry. It worked under 122mm rocket barrages at Khe Sanh, where every second of delay could cost lives. Tens of thousands were built. They towed every medium and light howitzer in every major American and Allied operation across 10 years of war. They were never fast, never comfortable, never elegant, never exciting. They were simply there, every day, in every hellish place, refusing to quit. They delivered when flashier, more powerful, or more expensive machines failed. The M35, Deuce-and-a-Half, was never the shining star of the United States Army or Marine Corps. It was simply the one piece of equipment American field artillery could not have fought and survived without in Vietnam.